Hello, everyone. Greetings from um, Paris on this second day of the new year. That's when I'm recording this because I've been reading this latest new issue of um, Michel Onfray's Front Populaire, a new journal that he began last year. And this December's issue number 7, is titled "Right and Left." Are they threatened species, threatened with disappearance? So it got me into thinking: have the traditional left and right disappeared? I would say yes, the traditional left and right have disappeared, but left and right as terms have not. They're still very much in circulation and in demand. Um, Especially given that uh, the righteous, indignant left of our times still define themselves as left wing or left wing adjacent, even though their political and social engagements have nothing to do with the traditional left, and even though they still hurl the term right wing as an insult meant to tarnish those who do not share their prejudices, as if being left or left wing implies a certain moral virtue or historical superiority. And note that in this regards, it does not. Uh, the most horrid genocides of the 20th century were perpetrated by supposedly virtuous left wing folks. You know the names: Hitler and Stalin and Mussolini and Mao Zedong. They were murderers of tens of millions of human beings. And they were all men of the left, brandishing leftist virtue and socialist ideals. And so, in terms of left and right, though they still exist as terms today and are still thrown about left and right, uh, they are meaningless, they're misleading, they're imprecise. The righteous left is no longer the left of the masses and liberalism and social justice. In fact, the righteous left is the very opposite, the antithesis, I would say, of liberalism and openness. And it has come to define in our times the very essence of doctrinaire intransigence and intolerance and obscurantism and historical distortions and identity politics. Conversely, the vilified right is no longer the right of bourgeois privilege and conservative values, but is indeed espousing the causes of the little people and attempting to protect nature, to protect history, even as the left itself labors to debaptize or deconstruct nature and history. This ranges from changing the names of city squares and street names, and removing and destroying statues, controlling what can and cannot be taught in schools, what books can or cannot be read, what personal pronouns can or cannot be pronounced, and normalizing the fact that there are today 35,000 different genders, that you can have a penis and still be a woman, because gender, as you know, is a social construct, and other such inanities. So basically, an auto-da-fe, an inquisition of history and nature. And so those terms, left and right, and what they stand for, or rather what they once stood for, are no longer precise. The left is no longer off the left, and the right is no longer on the right. To illustrate this dilemma, French philosopher Michel Onfray, the editor of this journal, uses the example of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, a story in the telling of Michel Onfray that condensed left wing causes, a story told by a compassionate man of the left, Victor Hugo, the author, who was making the case for the little people, the misérables, the miserables, the wretched of our world. So the misérables used to be the cause and the preoccupation of the left. Leftists were concerned for social justice, which is incidentally the polar opposite of today's societal justice. Social justice in Les Miserables may be illustrated in the story of Fantine, one of the characters, a young woman who gets taken advantage of and impregnated by a man who subsequently abandons her. She becomes a single mother. She cannot raise her child, her girl Cosette. She couldn't raise her on her own. She gives her up for adoption to a rich, well-off, let's say, well-off family that will raise Cosette, but still try to extort Fantine for alimony money that she does not have. So Fantine finds herself in the sticky situation where she has to sell her body. She gets to a point where, she sells her hair, she sells her teeth, prostitutes herself in order to provide for the daughter that she's unable to raise, that somebody else is raising. So raging against these sorts of social injustices, which used to be social injustices that were utter abominations from a humanistic conception of things, at least how the left saw them. Um, these used to be the causes of the left. Today, these sorts of objections to societal abuses have become the cause of the right, as the left has moved away from humanism to espouse post-human transhumanism. Selling or renting out a uterus, selling children into adoption, selling ovaries and sperm, etc., with no particular attachment to one's body parts, one's bodily fluids, and their products, our children. So doing all of that for the sake of societal rather than social causes. Societal in the sense of LGBTQ rights, the right to choose to be assigned a mail order gender, the right to ending a pregnancy on demand, even in third trimester pregnancies, the right to conceive for the purpose of harvesting a newborn's organs, and other such transhuman deviancies. This is, in fact, the aberrance or the aberrant paradigm inversion that the left is sponsoring in our times as a form of liberalism and progressivism. And so, whereas the left might have been on the compassionate, benevolent side of human existence, the Hugo view of things, taking the side of the underprivileged, the poor, the wretched of the earth, and saying, no, you don't have to sell your body to live decently. Today, the same left is proposing that selling one's children, one's sperm, one's ovaries is no different from working as a cashier in a supermarket or a UPS delivery man, essentially doing what needs to be done in order to eke out a living. So, in a sense, uh, this left has lost its bearings, it's lost its marbles, it's relinquished humanity and humanism, suggesting it's okay to rent out a woman's womb. It's okay to procreate in order to use the organs of a newborn for scientific research or to replace defective organs of another human being. That it's okay to perform abortions into the third trimester, sometimes into the ninth month. Uh, so, so, so a left, in a sense, that has become a monster, a grotesque metamorphosis of humanity and humanism, the antithesis of the compassion and benevolence that the left once incarnated uh, or feigned to incarnate. So one mustn't be surprised when former folks of the left start veering to the right, especially when the right takes a stand on behalf of or on the side of humanism and humanity and human nature and human history, saying no, children cannot be bought and sold. A uterus is not a rental car. Abortion is not on demand television. Um, and it cannot be performed with a push of a button with a remote control. So, in that sense, leftist wokeism uh, becomes denuded of all leftist values of yore, precisely because it abandoned all the traditional leftist social commitments in return for societal fads. I won't even call them ideologies. They are lunacies, they're fads, trans identity, LGBTQ, unhindered, uncontrolled mass migration, support of religious fundamentalism, even though leftism is supposed to be secular, critical race theory in school curricula, and screw learning how to read and write and think critically and do decent math, and screw the understanding of family and marriage, and let's all educate our 8-year-old children with the mental pollution that gender is a social construct, a choice, that a biological 8-year-old boy may choose to transition to being a girl if that's the identity he wishes to adopt, and some utter mental garbage. For instance, whereas the traditional left of the past might have advocated for limited immigration to allow for increased local national fiscal equality, not just mandate that, okay, we're going to pay you $20 an hour working at a McDonald's. Those are valid fights to fight. Uh, 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 Social security, guaranteed medical care, living wages, etc. Those were valid battles to fight. The left today has sort of relinquished this because it stands for unsustainable open borders and unhindered, uncontrolled immigration, all but destroying the social norms and the social programs of the host society. So from local social justice, the left has become a clarion call for global social justice. So take care of your home first in order to be able to take care of everybody else. But instead of doing that, open up your borders and drown us with new arrivals that we cannot take care of. So from feasible, attainable local and national justice, the left has become a virtue signaling advocate of an unattainable global justice chimera, to the detriment of local societies, the local wretched, if you will, of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. Um, so, in a sense, the left is rendered a lobotomized wokesterism, abandoning the cause of man, the rights of people, the rights of the average Joe, yielding the destruction of humanity and the transcendence of humanism in the direction of transhumanism, which is to say, fabricating new on demand mail order human beings and abdicating the true causes of humanity and mankind, which remain education, social justice, freedom, equality, equity, reduction of power differentials, and having a certain conception uh, of uh, of nature, of national pride, of national education, of national service, national defense, national history, patriotism, pride in one's place of birth, without having to go through the accusations of being a racist, etc. So, in sum, what we're living with the left today is Huxley's Brave New World. And I'll let you mull this over. And thanks for sticking around for this long rant.